I will today present on digital sea clusters as global-based collaborative testbed across the regions in order to jointly facilitate global harmonization and implementation of maritime digitalization. The clusters is one of the main pillars for the Digital Edge initiative under the umbrella of IALA. I will first review global status and future forecast on maritime digitalization and share the concept and roadmap for the cluster. So let's review the global status of maritime digitalization. I believe most of all of you are well aware of these pictures I used for a long time. The maritime community is now in the era of post-navigation and rapidly moving towards fourth industrial revolution. We can discuss together during the last several sessions, including the MOF and also port automation or digital platform connecting all stakeholders across the maritime sectors. I believe the COVID-19 pandemic during the last year until now also gave us some kind of lessons for maritime digitalization also. So personally, I anticipate that Korea maritime sectors might be fully transformed into digitalization before 2035 or at least 2040, or I believe like so. But actually, this is the same situation and same trend all over the world nowadays, I believe. This is one of the e-navigation instances providing ships route exchanging service for around 300 ships by STM and Navrlink at the European side based on the ACTIS system on board the ship through the shore-based service center. So you can see what is the route exchange service like this. And this is another instance of navigation, Korean Smart Navigation Service. We launched this service last January this year based on the domestic law. The left side shows the kinds of smart navigation services and some kind of architecture of the smart navigation. The service provided up to 100 kilometers from coastline through LTE communication network along all of the coast around the Korean peninsula. And the right side shows the vessel using smart navigation service, e-navigation service, I mean. More than 30,000 ships are to use the services through S100 electronic chart system on board ships, and around 97,000 small ships, extremely small ships of less than 3 tons, are to use the services through application on the mobile phone. Actually, right. Some of you remember the left picture that I introduced at the conference in 2017 as the concept of smart navigation. And 4 years later, after that, we finally come through the concept to reality. As you can see on the right side, this is the aviation clips I captured from my mobile phone using e-navigation service around the Korean coastline these days. And because of this customized service based on each ship's route and position respectively, they don't need to do plot collision or ground risk by themselves anymore. The shore center provide all of these alarm service to each vessel. Also, they don't need to check Navtex safety information by themselves anymore. Also, they don't need to do updating electronic navigation chart by themselves anymore. The Smart Navigation Center provide most updated electronic navigation chart for 24 hours a day. This slide shows the current situation of maritime safety and efficiency under the analog-based technology in maritime sector. There have been some limitation to achieve both goals of safety and efficiency at the same time. And however, like on the slide, this balance in the digitalized maritime sectors, we can get both goals of safety and efficiency at the same time in a harmonized and also sustainable way, like this kind of balance, as you can see on the slide. And also, we commonly expect safer and cleaner oceans, as well as more efficient shipping through digitalization. In fact, the IMO anticipates that 65% reduction of maritime accident. Also, some European parts said we can save port operation cost of $12 billion annually. Also, saving bunker consumption of more than $10 billion annual globally through the maritime digitalizations. The challenges, yes, of course, there should be some challenges, as the Jillian just talking about in his presentation. So that is why we are here today. So there are many kinds of navigation instances of the world, but first challenge is how to get global harmonization among digital services instances developed by each regions respectively. As you can see on this slide, that is why we need to establish a cluster across the regions for verifying, also validating the harmonization and interoperability among the instances. Second challenge is how to facilitate stakeholders participating in maritime digitalization together. As the lessons learned from the former MOU activities on testbed, it's very clear that goal-based cooperation and best practices showing the actual effectiveness to users as the use cases are most necessary to facilitate stakeholders participating in maritime digitalization initiative together. The cluster will give us the practical opportunity to achieve the harmonization and also the interoperability of maritime digitalization across the regions. Then let me now explain about clusters and its roadmap in a little bit more detail. These keywords were identified by Ms. Jillian Carson-Jackson again during the last hour conference. I like it very much. If we change the question like this, what does clusters mean to you? Then the answers might be just the same, of course, like this. The cluster is to achieve these keywords: harmonization and together, collaboration and sharing. Yes, I believe so and fully agree with these keywords. In addition, the most important thing to make clusters successful is the goal-based collaboration with clear needs among participants and best practices for users' benefits. And the cluster is one of the components of the digital SG initiatives under the umbrella of IALA, which is established during the last conference in 2020. As some of you are aware that the Digital Sea Initiatives has three kinds of main pillars, as you can see on this slide, including The first one is the digital sea clusters across the regions. And second part is, second layer, the series of digital sea conferences in Europe, North America, and Asia Pacific. And also third layers, you can see the third pillar, the capacity building workshop among advanced as well as the developing countries together to get some kind of common growth through the digitalization in the region together. So this is the basic concept of the clusters. The cluster will be started by global digital route testbed like this on board the real container ships operating between Korea and Europe. The component of a cluster include shore-based digital service center or platform like the Smart Navigation Service Center in Korea or some Navolink STM service center in European side. And also digital communication networks we need this to carry out this kind of test bed, including satellite or some new digital technology like the VDES. And also internationally agreed standard S100 active system on board as a shipborne platforms to use and provide the navigation services together. So the container ship is to be provided with the digital services seamlessly on an entire route from departure until entering into port, such as route service, maritime safety information services, and electronic navigation chart updating services, and port information services. The participants can verify and validate the harmonization and interoperability of their digital technologies and services across the region through these clusters, I believe. So the cluster will provide globally harmonized open testbed in one world network for all stakeholders in the region so as to facilitate global-based international cooperation and maritime digitalization. Now the feasibility study on this cluster is now underway by KRISO Institute Korea for developing some Korean side architecture, and also Bergman Marine BM for European side. So both institutes is now carrying out the feasibility study on the cluster. The final report on the clusters will be made by consolidating these two studies together, made by both sides of Bergman Marine and KRISO side. And also, I believe peer review on the study before finalizing the report will be done by steering committee. So I very welcome all of you to join the steering committee to review this report by a peer review to further develop the report. So this is the roadmap to start operating clusters. That is feasibility study, as I told you just now, until next year. And MOU will be there, and while organizing participants in the cluster around the next years, and starting clusters step by step from 2023. This is just same situation, same theory that just Ms. Jillian said. We need to focus on the progress, not perfection. So we need to start clusters step by step. So that is my conclusion. And as you can see on my slide, we reviewed the global trend of maritime digitalization, and we shared the clusters to achieve the global harmonization of maritime digitalization under the umbrella of IALA. Thank you so much, and I'm going to conclude my presentation asking all of you here to join the clusters, because one step made by altogether is more stronger than 10 steps made by one country. Thank you.